Ben, what do you think's not happening in the passing game right now?
I'm not playing well enough.
Why is that?
Don't think so, but maybe I am. Maybe I don't have it anymore. I had that answer. We wouldn't be getting tripped up and wouldn't be playing so poorly on offense. But, like I said, we need to look in the mirror, and it starts with me. I need to play better football because the ball's in my hands every single play. And so when it's in my hands, I need to make the best decision. And right now, I'm not playing good enough football for us to win. Yeah, I mean, I hope so. If I don't play good enough football, then I need to hang it up.
Hey, you blink, I'll cut your eyelids off. Don't you blink. Let's go.
And good evening, everybody, and late afternoon for all those utility game right now. Welcome to another edition here of the Mass Steel podcast right now. And we are getting ready to dive into the Steelers versus Bills. Yes, believe it or not, it's true, as Kurt Angle would say, also Pittsburgh athlete, growing up, both famous for their wrestling. It is now a 2-game losing streak after an unbeaten start after going 11-0 right now. Obviously, some flaws right now with some concerns in the offensive line and the running game. And how much of it is true? Is Ben Roethlisberger really getting too much freedom with this offense right now? And is it starting to catch up and haunt this team? What are some miscues on the defense? And much more. More importantly, we got a game coming up in a few hours at 8:15 Eastern Time. It's going to be a big one. Cleveland Browns hosting the Baltimore Ravens. This time, it will be in the dog pound in Cleveland right now. After getting destroyed by the Ravens in the first game, I really said it before, this Browns team has no quit, and they've been buying in with Kevin Stefanski. Say what you want, but this ain't the same old Browns team anymore. For those of you tuning in, it is a pleasure for me to be joined right here on the right hand of my screen. I'm talking about none other than right now who is joining me here. The Godfather, Pittsburgh Sports Talk Radio, Stan Savran. He currently hosts Savran on Sports, which airs Monday through Friday from 12 to 2 Eastern Time on ESPN 970 Pittsburgh. You can follow him on Twitter at Stan Love the Show. You can check out all his podcasts on iHeartRadio. Stan, I just wanted to say thank you very much for joining me here today. Like I said, I wish it would be a little bit of a better Monday, but I got 3 words going into tonight's game. If the Ravens are able to help out the Steelers tonight, watch the birdie.
It's amazing that Steeler fans actually have to be rooting for the Ravens. That is something you probably would never happen again or hear ever happen again. It doesn't taste real good when you say that, but they could use the help. I still think the Steelers, are going to win the division. But the big issue, of course, now is that for all intents and purposes, their desire to get a bye and home field is pretty much gone now because they lost the tiebreaker edge they had on Kansas City. Even if the Chiefs, for example, were to lose to New Orleans this Sunday, they could easily wrap it up and win the tiebreaker over the Steelers. And again, that's assuming that the Steelers would win all 3 or 2 of their last 3 games. And right now, even the Cincinnati game doesn't seem safe.
Yeah, that is true right there. You talk about a Steelers team right here who has been on a winning streak since 2015, basically right here. You look at everything that has been leading up to this point. So far, they got I think 11 straight victories, if I'm not mistaken, over this Bengals team right now. But the good news is right now, you look at what's happening right now with Hill as a quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. They got their first loss yesterday, but the only question is, too, let's just say if the Steelers are able to get help from the Ravens tonight, beating the Browns in Cleveland, and then you got to have the Kansas City Chiefs. Here's the remaining schedule right now, as it looks like, as you just mentioned, with obviously getting their game cut to a game, but losing the top seed temporarily. The Chiefs' remaining games are going to be on the road against New Orleans, and then 2 winnable games after that is the Falcons and the Chargers. So pretty much their last gasp hope right now, as far as the AFC goes, is a hope that they get some help from the Saints this Sunday, which would be a 3:25 p.m. game. And then the Steelers versus the Bengals on Monday night. real quickly, just to start off right now, I mean, we see about flex scheduling going on right now. Have you been surprised so far that there's been no announcement, or do you anticipate an announcement that the Steelers Bengals game will be flexed to a day game? I mean, that's a Monday night game, but the Bengals are without their quarterback, Joe Burrow, for the rest of the season. What do you think? Do you think that'll still stand, or will we drop back to Sunday game?
No, I mean, the Monday Night Football, outside of COVID issues, they don't mess with that. That does not fall into the category of flex. Flex is taking a game from 1 to 8, and then subsequently taking a game from 8 until the afternoon. We're seeing that with the Browns and Giants next week. That has been moved to a Sunday night game, but it hasn't changed days. The only days that they've changed were due to COVID issues. So for the betterment of a TV audience, they're not likely to do that. I mean, I wish they would. I do the post-game show on the Steeler Radio Network. That means I'm on the air until 2 a.m. with these night games. So I'd prefer for every game to start 1 o'clock Sunday afternoon. The problem they have with the Chiefs now is that even a loss to New Orleans and a Steelers win over Cincinnati, that would equal their record. The problem is that that loss by New Orleans would be to New Orleans would be an NFC loss. They still would have the tiebreaker edge. In order for the Steelers to actually gain the home field advantage, and frankly, by the way they're playing right now, I think that's fairly irrelevant. They would actually have to have a better record overall than Kansas City, because right now Kansas City owns the tiebreaker. The first tiebreaker would be not conference record. That would be equal. It would then go to common opponents. The common opponents these two have played, Kansas City has an edge. They beat Buffalo. The Steelers lost to Buffalo. And so Kansas City would get that number 1 seed and the first round bye.
So, you know what? Another question that's been going on right now is we look at the Steelers' struggles the last few games, and we take a look at their run efficiency. It's been purely pathetic, to say the least, when you look at I mean, the last 7 games so far on this ground attack, lack thereof, real quickly. I mean, we look at it. It's been averaging 54.3 yards per carry. Not even 3 yards an attempt, real quickly. I'm gonna kick it off with a hard ball on you, Stan. Aside from the flex schedule of the Monday night, do you think the Steelers made the biggest mistake this year? And not a lot of Steeler fans want to hear it, or people in the media, but did the Steelers miss out on trying to re-sign Le'Veon Bell when he got released from the Jets? How much do you think that's catching up with him, or do you think that was too much of a burnt bridge from a couple years ago where that wasn't going to work?
They made a fair offer to Le'Veon Bell. He chose not to accept it. He chose not to play on the franchise tag. I would offer this, that in 2018, although they didn't make the playoffs that year, they kind of collapsed down the stretch, finishing 9-6-1. James Conner actually had a pretty decent year running the ball. Now, he's not Le'Veon Bell. He's never going to be Le'Veon Bell. But I think that their running issues go much beyond who the running back is. I think their offensive line the last couple of years has just been awful. They're the primary reason that they don't run the ball very well. I think there are a couple of factors. Number one, the blocking for Le'Veon Bell is different than you would for a conventional back, just because of the way that Bell ran. His hesitating style, it's a great style, but it calls for a different kind of blocking. It calls for more finesse blocking. This group does not fire off the ball. They're finesse blockers. They're good pass protection guys. They do not blow anybody off the line of scrimmage. They don't create any movement. It's one of the reasons, the main reason, in my judgment, why they do not do well on the goal line, why they don't do well in third and fourth and short yardage. They just are not physical enough. The other factor is Le'Veon Bell hasn't been here for quite some time now. He has been, last year was 2017. These offensive linemen are in their 30s. They have 3 starters who are in their 30s now. I don't think Marquise Pouncey is what he once was. Alejandro Villanueva was never a good run blocker. And I think there's something wrong with Dave DeCastro. I think he's playing hurt. He's not having a good year. He's getting shoved around. You may remember that after the Washington loss, Mike Tomlin was bemoaning how the lack of physicality, he used that term. They're getting pushed around. And if you're going to run the football, you cannot get pushed around. Their running game is replete with defenders getting penetration in the backfield. When defense gets penetration in the backfield on a running play, it's all over. It's blown up. And they continually get shoved back. And people talk about, well, Ebron's not a good blocker. No, he's not. They don't use Derek Watt. I don't know why they got him in the first place. But even the greatest blocking fullback in the history of football is not going to help you if your offensive linemen are allowing penetration. And that's what happened here. I don't think the running backs are very good. They're mediocre at best. And all that plays into it. But my main issues with that offensive line, and they're going to have to do a major retooling on that next year. I mean, we're a long way from next year, but to me, that's a draft priority right now.
You know, funny thing you should say that, because I remember the first time I had you on earlier in the year. I remember, I still remember it clear as day. You said for going into the draft, one of the top priorities you had in your wish list, you said, in quote unquote, that you would like to see them get a mauler in this offensive line. And to be honest with you right now, we've seen changes with, you know, kind of tweaks to the defense. You see Terrell Austin Sr., who's in his second straight year right now, assisting with Keith Butler. He's the secondaries coach, Austin. Then you got Matt Canada right now, who's the quarterbacks coach, trying to help relieve some of the pressure off Randy Fichtner. Is it any way possible that we may see someone come in like next year with the offensive line? I mean, it's sad to say, because the truth of the matter is, I mentioned this to Pompiani on his show that he does on Saturdays on 937 The Fan. That is very well possible that they may make another move at the offensive line coach. I mean, yeah, it was still struggling in the run game when Bell was there, but the attitude has tremendously dissipated. It's scary because you got to be third or fourth and short for something significant where it's in the playoffs. Yellow in the Super Bowl at the 1 yard line. We got to be seeing these quick slants or pass because we can't trust enough of a push.
Well, that's what cost them the Washington game, among other things. 5 cracks from the 1 yard line, couldn't get in. They had a 3rd and 1 and a 4th and 1. They have so little faith and confidence in their running game, for good reason, that they had to pass on 3rd and 1 and then the 4th and 1 to McFarland down the sideline. Yeah, I think that the offensive line coach has to come into question. A lot of people have talked about the loss of Mike Munchak. I'm sure that could be a factor, although Sean Surratt is a disciple of Mike Munchak, but he's not Mike Munchak. I mean, that very well could be true. But I believe this, Charles, that football games are won and lost by players. Now, coaches have to put them in the best position to succeed, and I don't think this coaching staff has done a very good job of that, particularly the offensive coaching staff. I'm talking about all the offensive coaches, and in particular, Randy Fichtner. Just on a tangent off of that, we have seen this short passing game totally shut down. And it's obvious to me, watching the games, that defenses have said, we don't have to concern ourselves with the run game. They don't hit any long passes. We see they're just trying these short passes. Ben gets rid of the ball very quickly. These short slants, these short in routes, these short pick routes that they run. We're going to jam the line of scrimmage. We're going to rush 4 because it's difficult to get to Ben anyway, because he gets the ball out so quickly. And we're just like you want to pack the box against the run. They're packing the box against the pass. And I have not seen the Steelers make any adjustment whatsoever. And this has been going on for a while. They had a bad game against Dallas. Okay, you're allowed. But they did struggle a bit offensively against Jacksonville. They certainly did against the depleted Baltimore team. They definitely did against Washington. And you saw them struggle against Buffalo on Sunday night, and that's not a good defense that they're playing against Buffalo. It's not horrible, but it's not a good defense. They
That's
were
enough to
ranked
make key
23rd in the
plays.
NFL.
Yeah, and speaking of which, let's go ahead and dive into that game, especially last night. The key moment that stood out for me, I don't know if you want to say something different, but I really felt like the one thing that was left bitter was the end of that first half. I mean, Grant, you had the pick six right there. I mean, the Steelers were pretty much, I thought they did a good, solid start. This is the second straight week in a row where the defense has started off well. But in the last two games, their defense right now, for this matter, they given up like about, what was it, like 36 points almost in the last two games in the second half. I mean, so my thing is, you pick six it, you missed the extra point attempt, you got two timeouts. Almost kind of reminds me of an exact situation here in Chicago, which I'm from, with the Bears on Monday night against the Rams. Foley let valuable time off the clock wind down. I feel like it was a big mistake to not at least try and give a little bit more of an effort, at least put themselves in position for a field goal, try at least take the lead at the end of the half, give them something to feel good about. I thought that was a huge game changer aside from the pick six. Say you.
I think you're right. I think they should have had 52 seconds. They had timeouts remaining. What didn't make sense, they ran the ball on first down, then threw it on second down. If you're going to run out the clock, then run out the clock. If you're going to make an effort, then pass. I think that Tomlin, he knew that they were probably a bit shell-shocked. He didn't want to have another mistake. I would have been more in line with that if the Steelers were due to get the ball to start the second half, but they weren't. Buffalo was going to get the first possession of the third quarter. To me, that was the interception changed the game around, no question, in terms of momentum. But the fact that Buffalo came out and marched right down the field to begin the third quarter, that to me was the ball game there. And again, I go back to changes. It's obvious what Buffalo did. They made adjustments at halftime. The Steelers made zero adjustments at halftime. Buffalo, their offense did nothing in the first half. Obviously, they got 6 points for free. The field goal they got was the result of a missed tackle by Minkah Fitzpatrick, and a 30-yard gain should have been a 3-yard gain. So the Buffalo offense had done nothing. The Steelers had great pressure. So what did the Bills do? They borrowed a page from the Steelers' offensive book. They had Josh Allen get rid of the ball very quickly. They didn't have him standing 7 yards deep. They didn't have him waiting and waiting. It was 1, 2, 3 rhythm passing, and the Steelers kept on blitzing. That put their corners, and remember, Joe Hayden's not in the game. Remember, their inside linebackers are not great. Now, whenever you blitz, as you know, you are in man coverage. That personnel group is not capable of man coverage. Now, Stephon Diggs is a tremendous player. He doesn't lead the NFL in receptions for no reason. It's not an accident. But obviously, when you're playing man, you got to play man on him. It's another example of not making any adjustments. Offensively, and to your point, Tomlin always says, we're not going to live in our fears. Well, he lived in his fears against Washington when he wouldn't let Matthew Wright kick a field goal, when that's what was called for at that point, and he lives in his fears at the end of the first half. So you need to get your story straight. You need to get your message straight.
Yeah, and speaking of getting message straight right now, sad to hear this same old guy crying wolf once again. I mean, no disrespect, but with Ben Roethlisberger more particularly, feel like I should be making a better play. If not, I should probably hang it up. Similar speech against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Obviously, this is much more later in his career versus 3 years ago. Doesn't have as much the off-the-wall weapons as he did in Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell. But the million-dollar question I want to pitch to you right now, he still maintains he's the guy who wants to honor his contract. But given everything that he's had to endure the last few years, you look at a guy who's probably broke up something special they had in Pittsburgh with the Killer Bees, and then being out for the first time, that was an eye-opener with the throwing elbow. If he wins the Super Bowl, if they happen to find a way to hold the fort down, even if they had to go all 4 rounds by whatever. If he wins his third ring, do we see a Jerome Bettis moment where he hangs up, or would you see him back on the saddle for one more time and give it a go and see what happens there?
Two ways to look at that. He could say, I'm going out on top. This is what I always wanted, another Super Bowl ring. Or he could say, I want more. It's hard to figure. At this point, he's not doing it for the money. He's not enduring, what he's enduring just because he wants to make more money. He's certainly got, more than enough. It's a good question. I'm not taking what he said last night at face value. In my experience of doing this for many years, when an athlete makes a claim right after a game, I tend not to take it seriously, only because they're emotional, they're human beings, they're competitors at the highest level, and they get disappointed, they're upset. I don't think he meant that he wanted to retire. I think he was saying, I've got to play better than this. If I can't be any better than this, then maybe I should get out. That's not to say that I want to get out. So I don't take that at face value. I will say this. He does make those speeches because he feels like, as the veteran, as the only Super Bowl winner on the team, as a competitor, as the leader of the offense, he feels like he has to step up and take blame. Last night, it wasn't hyperbole. He had a bad game. He played very poorly. And I've made the point on my show and on the Steeler Radio Network on the postgame show that Ben has not played well for the last 3 weeks. And yes, there have been a rash of drops. And this is not to excuse those who drop passes, mainly Johnson and Ebron. They should have been caught, every one of them. However, it's also fair to say that some of those drops might have been mitigated if the balls had been better placed. Ben's career, one of the amazing things about him is if a ball needs to be high and outside, that's where it goes. If it needs to be low and inside, that's where it goes. He's amazingly accurate. But on some of those drops, yes, they should have been caught. I'm not trying to excuse those receivers, but some of those balls were not well thrown. Slightly high, slightly low, slightly behind, slightly too far in front. He's has to take his share of the blame. And last night he played a very, very poor football game. And also, when I complain about Randy Fichtner not having made any adjustments to that short passing game, it's as if they're saying, this is what we do. We don't care what you do. Well, you have to care what the defense does. Part of that blame goes on Ben. Why? Not only because he's executing, but he is a major architect of the weekly game plan. They are doing the same things every single week on offense. And it became clear to me after the Washington game, Chase Young of the Washington football team said, we knew we could win. Baltimore exposed some things. We're seeing all these teams doing the same thing, and the Steelers haven't changed anything. And that partially goes to Ben.
Yeah, no question about it. But I do want to spin to another thing. And right now, we're being joined right now by the Godfather of Sports Talks Radio, Stan Savran of ESPN Radio. Real quickly, one of the special things, I mentioned this to you before we got on the air, and you're part of like the Steelers Hall of Fame committee as far as like helping with people in the Hall of Honor, or you did some very beautiful interviews at the beginning of the year with guys like Donnie Show and some of his former teammates. I want to say Alan Faneca going into this year. Anything in the works right now, since we already know that Hines Ward, Alan Faneca, so far there is semifinalists for the 2021 class. Given that we already see Cower, Show, and Palomalo going into the Hall of Fame, anything special that you want to share for a Steeler Nation fan watching this that's in the works?
Well, the Hall of Honor, the Steelers Hall of Honor induction was supposed to have taken place a week from Sunday when the Colts come to town, a couple days after Christmas. But they're not going to be any fans allowed. We're not allowed to have any fans at Heinz Field as ordered by the governor of Pennsylvania. So what the Steelers are planning on doing is putting together a special program, which will be on their various social media platforms to honor the class of 2020, which includes James Ferrier, Greg Lloyd, the late, great Dwight White, Mike Wagner, and there will be that program. It's going to be up, I believe, by the end of this week or early next week. And again, it was supposed to be the induction ceremony. They have a little dinner, and then they have a thing at the stadium at halftime. But again, they don't want to do without fans there, as you can understand. So that's something to look forward to on the Steelers website, Twitter, those sorts of social platforms.
And real quick, final one before I get you out. It's a two-part question. I just want to ask you real quickly. Predictions for the Pro Football Hall of Fame class. Do we at least see one more Steeler get in, or two join the other three that was supposed to be inducted this past summer, which obviously is getting replanned for this August, depending if everything goes okay with the vaccine and everything. And then two, final score for tonight's Browns-Ravens game.
I think there's much more of a chance that Alan Faneca gets in than Hines Ward. Not that Hines isn't deserving, but I think that Alan Faneca has just been a finalist so many times. This has been a real cause of mine. He's gotten so close. Do you know that he's the only offensive lineman who has been selected for 9 Pro Bowls who's not in the Hall of Fame? This is ridiculous. Alan Faneca was the premier the premier guard of his time in the NFL, certainly among the top 2. Listen, I could say the same thing about Tony Baselli. He clearly belongs in. So does Alan Faneca. And Steve Hutchinson of Seattle was a great player at guard, but he was no better than Alan Faneca. So I expect that Faneca will make it in this time. I think Hines is going to have to wait, a little bit longer. As far as the game tonight, Baltimore is fighting for its playoff life. If they lose this game and drop to 7-6, chances are they're not going to make it. I'm going to call for an upset here. I think the Browns are vastly improved. I think their mentality is improved. That's the most important thing. There's always been a great deal of talent there, but this is now a fully healthy Baltimore team. They've got everybody back from when they had all those players with COVID issues. I'm going to pick an upset and say Baltimore 23, Cleveland 20.
I will say this. I want the Ravens, but I have a feeling it's going to be the Browns. And you know what the irony of all of this is? I maintain this. You know as well as I do. Ever since the Cleveland Browns had to lose their football team for 3 years, 3 straight years because of Art Modell not getting the stadium updated. I mean, they did not allow the Browns name to go with the Baltimore, but they had to give up their team, their staff, their coaches, everything except the ownership. I mean, except the name and basically a newer stadium. But I tell you what, how sweeter would it be for a Browns fan take out their frustration on a team who they lost their original football team to in the Ravens to be back for a playoff scenario? Possibly.
Well, no question. I'm a native Clevelander, Charles, and my father and I had season tickets to the Browns games for years. I'm talking about the real Browns, not these Browns.
Wow.
The real Browns are buried underneath the Chesapeake Bay outside of Baltimore. And I know a lot of friends who are still huge Browns fans. And while the Steelers remain their top rival, the hatred for the Ravens because of exactly that is very high. And my thought is that I'm just thinking about what might benefit the Steelers most, and that would be a Baltimore win. I assure you, I've not turned into a Ravens fan. I assure you of that.
No, but we must admit, like I said, though, their fortunes, in my opinion, ever since losing their team, has dramatically changed since then. It's not been nearly the same old Browns team, except for that magical 2002 run where we had that fun wild card game in the first round of the playoffs. Stan, I just wanted to say thank you very much. Great stuff. Love listening to on your show whenever you get a second or your podcast. I just want to continue to wish you first and foremost Be healthy, a blessed, safe Merry Christmas and New Year coming up. Thank you for everything you do, and love the content. And hopefully we can reach back out again soon down the road when you have some time. You take care, and best wishes to you, my man, and your family.
Same to you, Charles. Thanks so much for inviting me. I'm honored and I'm flattered that you wanted me on the show. Thank you.
You're a legend, Stan. It's always a pleasure having you on. Feel free to come back on anytime. You have a great one. Take care.
You too.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
And that's going to do it for this edition here of the MSGO podcast right now with me, Charles Project Richie. Yeah, just said a mouthful right there. The original Browns right there. I'm going to have to remember that one. But Steelers definitely need a key game. Should the Browns upset the Ravens tonight, they will pull to within a game. Steelers do own the tiebreaker. Remember of their head-to-head matchup earlier in the season. But as far as everything goes right now, with the tiebreakers outside of that, I mean, when you truly look at it, I mean, the Steelers, with that loss to the Buffalo Bills, I mean, right now, I mean, in that game, which was so vastly important, that is their first loss in the conference. That brings them to 8-1. The Steelers do hold the strength of victory tiebreaker as well over the Browns, too. Steelers at 409, and the Browns are at 347 here as we look at it. And, I mean, no doubt about it, I really do believe, and I should have asked Stan this when I had him on, but Myles Garrett, I really do believe he is to the Browns what Mean Joe Green was to the Steelers, to be truthfully honest with you. But we shall see right now. Steelers, for the most part, they did get their 32nd playoff berth clinched yesterday, thanks in large part to the Chiefs defeating the Miami Dolphins in Miami yesterday. Remember, the Steelers needed either Chiefs, they either needed a Dolphins, Raiders, or Titans loss. You did have the Dolphins losing the Kansas City Chiefs, which did prove to be so much vital than that. So we'll find out going on. Plus some other stuff right here. Aside from this game, the other recaps, we heard that right guard Kevin Dodson left the game with a shoulder injury in the third quarter. J.C. Hassenauer, he had to come in and finish the game at guard. And Matt Filer, the left guard, he was ruled out with a shoulder injury. Kamala did say after the game that both Dodson and Filer, they did have pectoral injuries here. And then the game changers, of course. I think the biggest game changers in this game yesterday was the pick six by Ben Roethlisberger, under minute left to go in the first half. Then Mike Hilton with a critical pass interference call, which the Steelers were still down by 8 points at that point. They didn't allow them to get a touchdown, but they were able to just allow a field goal in that spot right there. And they end up losing this game, like I said, in this contest here, 26-15. The Bills would never look back. Since they took that lead, the Steelers would only have 8 points to show for it in the second half. So in the second half, I mean, the last few games, they have been outscored. I mean, basically, when you look at it, aside from everything going on over here, I mean, when you look at both contests here, 37-11, 37-11 last two games, they've been outscored here in both those games. And when asked by Dale Lally about Ben Roethlisberger, was asked if the Steelers can regain things. I hope so. If I don't play good enough football for us to win, then I need to hang it up. I still feel like I can do enough things to help this team win football games. I'm going to do everything I can to get us back on track. When asked about the pick six with under a minute to go in the first half, Roethlisberger was saying that I saw them go into a zone coverage, so I tried to keep Juju going out to the corner to get blown up. He then went on to say, aside from that being a 17th career pick six, that I put a little bit on his body behind him. The guy made a good play. It's just a bad play on my part. Can't do it at the end of the half, giving them points. Not just turnover, but they get points off of it. 110% on me. And right now, too, Pierre King, I mean, he won a record saying, too, as far as like with Rosberg, he looks old and slow. I mean, the running game, 54 yards per game on average over the past 7 weeks is feeble. The words you never hear about Pittsburgh's offense, soft, is now being whispered. And the Steelers could never exert their will on the Bills. And the quotes coming out of their locker room, most notably from Rosberger, are sounded ominous. So let's go ahead and give the game balls in this contest right here. I'll definitely give one to in this contest here. Tyson Alalu, I'll give him the game ball for the defense right now. Remember, I mean, in that contest, don't forget, he helped get the Steelers sack streak record to 70 games right now. They passed the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who did it back in 1999 as we look at it. So they began their sack streak with Warren Sapp, Derek Brooks, and all those guys. Their streak began October 10th, 1999, and ended on November 9th, 2003, the year they were the defending Super Bowl champions. And then you also had the Dallas, who was third on this list with 68 games. They began theirs on October 24th, 1976, under the legendary Tom Landry. They wanted to win their second Super Bowl a year later, and their streak came to an end on December 7th, 1980. So, and then for the game ball on offense, I got to swallow my pride on this one. I have to give it to in this contest here. Give me Josh Allen. I feel like the Steelers in this contest were the biggest mistakes they made. They blitzed way too much in this contest. I really feel like where they were just doing incredibly poor was just. I mean, as time went on, they
I got the laptop.
I got the list.
Sounds like we're ready to watch our.
And they paid for it. I really do. I just feel like that's the wrong way to go about it. I think they used too much of their force on that contest. But honestly, we'll see what happens here. I mean, going forward, with this team. But yeah, I definitely do feel like right now the Steelers, for the most part, they send way too many guys in the blitz. Josh Allen was able to dissect it, and they were able to beat them in this contest right here. And there you have it. So now really hope for a very critical win for the Ravens tonight to keep the Steelers 2 games. I believe the magic number for the Steelers does stand at 2 because of the strength of victory tiebreaker right now. As we look at it, Steelers are 4-0 in the division right now. The Browns lose this game, they will drop 2-3. And aside from this game, the Browns' next opponent from this game, they'll be facing the New York Giants. That'd be an interesting game. That's going to be a Sunday night game at 7:20 p.m. kickoff. Remember, the Giants are also still trying to have hopes playing for the division, so we'll see how that falls up. That should be a real good game right there in itself. But like I said, in common games right now, the Steelers are 10-1, and then the Browns are 9-2. Steelers in the AFC, they're 8-1. Browns are 6-3 in the AFC as of the moment. So that's going to do it for this edition here of the Meta Steel podcast. So like I said, give me Josh Allen for the game ball on offense right here, who had a marvelous game versus Steelers and made them pay. This guy went 24-43 for 238 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Ben Roethlisberger did finish up the day clean 21-37. Not a great day at the office for 187 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. But Tyson Alalu, I'll give it to him on defense. Just for saying the sack streak record here, he had 4 tackles, 2 of them being solo, and a tackle for a loss, and 2 quarterback hits. Avery Williamson, I got to just say, give a tremendous shout out to him. He definitely played lights out football, in my opinion. He had 11 total tackles, which he led the team in, had 1 quarterback hit. So I'd like to see how much more that's going to be incorporated in this defense. For once again, you can follow me guys on social media on Twitter and Instagram at Project Richie. Meta Steel Podcast on Twitter is at Meta Steel 2